Hi everybody, welcome to the webinar. My name is Vincent Kelly and I am absolutely delighted that you are here with me tonight so that I can help you out, give you some information that I have learned that has helped me in my life, and I hope that it will help you tonight. So I want to just say hello to everybody who's on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. We've got all those platforms running and we've got somebody keeping an eye on those platforms. So anybody who's on those platforms, if you have any questions or you've got comments throughout the webinars or you want to give an example, you can simply put your comments into the comment section and it will come straight around to me on Zoom. So I've got Zoom here open in front of me. So anybody who's on Zoom tonight, you will be able to put your comments directly in. I can see you all beside me here. I can see your comments. I can see your questions. And I'll be able to ask you for examples tonight. So if you have anything that you want to add or you'd like to participate, you can put your comments into the chat. So before I begin, I would absolutely love it if you don't mind. Would you please, we'll do the first exercise of the webinar tonight, is put in the chat where you are logging in from. And I really like to do this at the beginning of every webinar because it helps me to see where everybody is so I can make sure that I'm giving examples that are relevant, to everybody. No point in giving examples just about Irish food if half of the people on it aren't familiar with the webinar with Irish food. So that's the first exercise. Please put into the chat where you are logging in from. I would be most grateful so I can see. And hello. Okay, and by the way, if anybody runs into any technical issues there tonight, Sylvia is on the chat here as well, so if there's any tech issues, you can contact her. Hello, Aminat. Thank you very much for joining. Catherine from Dublin. Hi, Catherine. Thank you very much for joining. Caitlin from, I hope I said your name right. That's how we would say your name in Ireland. I hope it's right. USA, Nebraska. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm in Canada. Wonderful. Gorgeous. Caitlin, thank you. Anushka from Bangladesh. Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us from Bangladesh. And Kelly from Ontario in Canada. Beautiful. Great. It's absolutely great to have such a broad array of people on the webinar tonight. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Okay, so we're going to launch straight into it. Now, the way I run the webinars is I'm going to give you a piece of data, and then I will give you an opportunity to give examples from your own experience. If you could participate, it would be fantastic. You don't have to, but I would encourage you to because it'll help you to get an understanding of the subject as well. The webinar will be going on for about 40 minutes, roughly around that time, and I'm going to give you the rock bottom basics about how to improve a relationship with somebody and how to repair an upset. The very, very rock bottom basics on it. I would like you to stay until the end because for everybody who stays at the end, until the end, I've got a special offer for you that I want to show you to enhance your education going forward. And if you're watching the TV at the same time as you're watching the webinar, if you don't mind turning off the TV, because I'm greedy for attention. I want all of your attention. I don't want half of it. If the dog is running around the floor in front of you, barking at you, just, I don't know, give him a treat or something. Just sit, dog. Sit down there while I listen to Vincent's webinar. Or if the cats are all jumping all over you right now, just, I don't know, what do you do with cats? Yeah, okay, you just can't do anything. You just tolerate it, I suppose. So let's get going. A bit about myself. I've been helping people on a one-to-one basis for over 30 years, 29, 30 years. And I have based what I use to help people with upon this manual here, A New Slant on Life, other books by this author, L. Ron Hubbard. A New Slant on Life means a new way of looking at life. So some of the references that I might be giving you tonight might refer to a couple of lines in the book, okay, just a couple of sections that relate to relationships. And then also I'll be showing you this book at the end called Communication, which helps you to improve relationships. As you know, communication is like the the, the, basis, that we all need. Okay, so we've all had trouble with relationships with people, me included. I have wrecked several relationships with people by saying stupid things, by not staying in touch with people, by just ridiculous things that I should have known better, by, saying things in my family that I shouldn't have said, by, all sorts of different ways to cause an upset, by Vincent Kelly, bestseller. So I have gone through it, and I know how it affected me. So when I've ever had an upset with somebody I cared about, it stayed on my mind. I just didn't like it. It just stays there. So relationships with people are very, very important. And if you're having upsets with people regularly, it's going to affect you. And for me, it definitely has affected my mood, my ability to work, my motivation, and so forth. So now, before we begin onto the data to help you out, what I would like to find out from you is, what is the biggest problem that you run into in terms of relationships? In other words, why are you here? You obviously logged on to this webinar for a reason. So if you don't mind typing it in the chat, I'd be most grateful. So was it just general interest? Is there, do you want to improve a relationship after having had an upset with somebody? Do you want to just make more friends? Do you want to get yourself into a relationship with somebody? So what is the biggest problem that you have run into when it comes to relationships with people? And if you don't mind popping it in the chat, I'd be most grateful, because it gives me an idea about where to bring the webinar, and so I can relate it back to yourself at the end, rather than having me just do all the talking about what I think you should hear, as opposed to what you need and want. Okay? Is that all right? Excellent. So just put your thinking caps on. Why did you come to the webinar? And if you don't mind popping it into the chat, that would be fantastic. Even just one word, like nothing on Netflix, or I want to improve the relationship with my boss, or I want to find a girl, or I want to find a man. What is your reason? I'd like to know. Kate. Caitlin, okay. Improve marriage communication. Thank you very much. Yes. Excellent. Amina, keeping relationships. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, Marie. To stop me being awkward around people. Okay. Yep. Thank you very much, Marie. Okay, Anushka. Improve personality and have healthy relationships. Okay. I'm writing these down so that I don't forget them at the end and I can relate back. Okay, Jen. Hi, Jen. Too honest and opinionated at work with some colleagues. Got it. Too honest and opinionated. Thank you very much, Jen. And Catherine, improve relationships with friends and parents. Okay, thank you, Catherine. Okay, now I'm going to promise you something. I promise you that this data I give you tonight, you're going to be able to use this data immediately to be able to start improving all those things. Marriage, keeping relationships going, being awkward around people. Now, just around on that one there, awkward around people, there's a bit more on the communication end, which I'll be referring to at the end, but we'll still cover it. Healthy relationships, being too honest and too opinionated, and improve relationships with friends and parents. Okay, so I promise you we'll get that going. So let's launch straight in here. 9 minutes past 8. We should be finished in about 40 minutes. Then what I'll do is we'll wrap up, and I can leave the section open at the end for any questions that you have, and then we'll conclude for the evening. Okay, so let's look at the very rock bottom basics here. Okay, so between two people, for there to be a relationship at all, there has to be one key ingredient, And that relationship is based on understanding. Okay? There has to be an understanding between two people. If there's an understanding between a husband and wife, like the wife understands that the husband has a sore leg every evening, and so he's a bit grumpy. She doesn't agree that he's grumpy, but understands him. The husband understands that the wife is tired when she comes back from work, and all she wants is a cup of tea. Right? He might want to talk about soccer to her, but she's not ready for that. And he might not agree with it, but he still understands her. He understands her. If you have a teenaged son or daughter, you might not agree with the fact that they're going out with a certain girl or a guy, but from your experience, you've been there and you understand what they're going through. So you're able to keep that gel going. You understand what's going on. If you don't understand why your son or daughter at the age of 15 or 16 has no interest in the opposite sex at all, and they're not going out, they're staying in the room all the time playing video games, and you don't understand it, it's going to cause a deterioration in the relationship because you simply don't understand. When you don't understand, there's going to be a misunderstanding. And this is where the upsets start to creep in. So if you understand somebody, you're likely to get on very well with them. So this is the gel that keeps that relationship together. Understanding. Now, what I'd like you to do as your very first exercise, I'll have about 6 or 7 asks of you tonight to get examples, okay? I want you to think of somebody in your life that you get on really well with. You don't have to write it in the chat. Somebody that you get on really well with. Okay, you will find that you and that person, you might not agree on everything, but you actually understand this person. You have a good understanding with each other. Okay, that's pretty basic. Now, how do we create an understanding with anybody, with a friend or a family member or a boss? How do we create that understanding? There are 3 ingredients which I'm going to show you about, and then I'm going to show you how to work these ingredients to make the cake, which ends up in understanding. So you have a good understanding and there's less misunderstandings. Okay? So that's the gel. Understanding, you understand somebody else, the relationship is improved. For example, if somebody came in to me and this person's from Mongolia and they can't speak any English, I don't understand them, they don't understand me, but we somehow manage to communicate with sign language, and then I go, now I understand you, and there's already a better relationship. So the more you understand, the better the relationship. The less you understand them, the more frayed the relationship. So we're going to have a look at what is it that creates good understanding between you and another person. What are the 3 key ingredients? This is what we'll have a look at right now. Okay, so the very first thing is that, and we'll go over this a little bit more in this book, and I'm going to be referring to this book now in just a moment to explain to you the definitions. Okay, so we have understanding, all right? How do you create a good understanding with your friends, your family, your partner, your colleagues at work, so that you really get on with each other? And how do you build that understanding and build it so that the relationship improves more and more? Okay, so you have a triangle. Okay, now this is called let me just do it in a different color. Affinity. I'm going to explain all these terms in just a moment. Reality. And this one here is communication. Okay, so this is the makeup of what it takes to have an understanding between two people. So let me just explain to you these terms very briefly. Affinity. I'm reading this from page 90 of this book here. It's called The Affinity, Reality, and Communication Triangle. Affinity is here used to mean love, liking, or any emotional attitude. So it's love, liking, or any emotional attitude, okay? So now when we talk about any other emotional attitude, it could be interest, it could be anger, it could be hate, it could be fear, or it could be apathy. These are just some examples of different emotional attitudes. So you could like somebody, you could love your partner, or you could hate your partner. You could like your friend, or you could be afraid of your friend. This is a level of affinity. You could like your friend and be also interested, or you could be angry. So these are the different levels of affinity that you can have with a person. Now, the basic definition of affinity is the consideration of distance, whether good or bad. So it has to do with distance. Now, what do you mean about that, Vincent? When you have a high affinity for somebody, you can tolerate them close to you. You want them close to you. When you have a low affinity for somebody, you want them very, very far. So the degree of affinity establishes how close or how far you consider that person should be from you. So for example, if you have a child and you love to have the child in your arms and giving them hugs, I have 2 kids and I know what that's like. You love having them in your arms and giving them hugs, right? So that's a high affinity because you want them in the same space. Whereas you might have somebody that you had a disagreement with 20, 25 years ago, and you want them very far. You don't want to have anything to do with them, so you want them very far away. That means is that your affinity is very low. Okay? Now, what I'd like you to do for this exercise is think about somebody that you like having in your space and pop it into the chat. You don't have to put in names, but just is it a friend or a family member, sister, brother. Think of somebody that you like having in your space or having close to you. Even if they're far away, you want them to be close. Think of somebody who you want to have close to you and pop it into the chat. Think of somebody that you want to have close to you and pop it into the chat. Okay, Anaya, my friend, wonderful. Kate, my children, fantastic. Catherine, my nephew, wonderful. Estefania, hi Estefania. And my brother, wonderful. Jen, my kids, that's great. Marie, my son is 20, but he's so chill. Anyone else stresses me out. Okay, Marie, thank you. Aminat, my friend, wonderful. Okay, now, and there's a question that came in on Instagram, but I'll take all these questions at the end first. So for the person who's watching on Instagram, I'm going to pick up your question a little bit later on. All of those people that you mentioned are people that you have a high affinity with. You love them. You like them. All right? So you're up around here. You're interested. You're not angry. You don't hate them. You're not afraid of them. You're not apathetic. Okay? So that's affinity. This is your degree of liking. Let's go on to the next definition. Okay. I take up the one comment here. Yes. Even if a child is so demanding and tiring, and at the end of your night, you're like, oh God, I can't wait till the kids go to bed. That's fine, but you would still rather have them close to you than further away. The next corner is reality. Now this comes from the word real. And I'm going to read out to you the little line from this book. The second corner of the triangle is reality. Reality could be defined as that which appears to be. Reality is fundamentally agreement. What we agree to be real is real. So, here I have a blue pen. Okay? Now, I can see it in my hands. I can feel it. For me, it's very real. For you, you can see an image of this pen, a blue pen. When I write on the board, it's blue. So you can agree with me that we have a blue pen. Okay? So you agree, and I agree, this is a blue pen. That's reality. It's real. It's real because we agree upon it. We have agreed this pen is blue. Vincent, that's obvious. Of course it's blue. Yes, but I have written it down and I'm holding it and we see the color of it, and so we agree that it's blue. Now, if I hold this pen up and I say, this is a, this is a bicycle. And my opinion on this, my reality, my viewpoint is, this is a bicycle. But you see a pen. So there is no agreement because you see something different to me. And so it's unreal. It's not real. So if I keep going on about my bicycle, you're not going to want to know because for you, it's unreal. It doesn't exist. So it's not real. So me telling you this is a bicycle is going to be very unreal to you. Whereas if I tell you it's a pen, we can agree. Okay? So that's reality. Reality is basically agreement. Okay? Agreement. Next exercise. Think of somebody in your life that shares a common interest with you. Somebody that shares a common interest. And pop it into the chat. You don't even have to pop the person so that we can save on words. Just put down, what is the common interest? So this is your next exercise. Think of somebody in your life with whom you share a common interest. And there we have agreement. Do you both like animals? Do you both like cups of tea? Do you both like watching movies? Do you like walking? Do you both agree that, Lidl is better than Aldi? For anybody over in Canada, I don't know if you have Lidl and Aldi over there, but we certainly have a lot of them over here. If you agree that Lidl and Aldi are better than Tesco, or if you agree that Marks and Spencer's is better than Tesco, for anybody in Canada or the US, Marks and Spencer's is another big food chain over here in Ireland and England. So think of somebody in your life with whom you share a common interest. And just put in the common interest. You don't have to put in the person. Okay. Okay, Kate, got it. Okay, Jen, cats. Excellent. Yeah, I've got, oh dear. I have, and we're also got a common reality here, Jen. Myself and my wife, we lost our cat. We went out searching for her. The cat appeared on Facebook. We collected the cat. We thought it was our cat. It turned out not to be our cat. And it also turned out that the cat was heavily pregnant. So now we have 6 cats. So that's the life of cats. Okay. Marie, my best friend, we love the same music. Wonderful. So that's a point of agreement that you have. Kate, having a lazy day. Wonderful. Marie, we have Aldi in Liverpool. Wonderful. Great. And Tony from Instagram. Hi, Tony. Wife and studying. Wonderful. Katrin, camping. Great. All right. Yes, Jen. It's quite the experience. Okay. So now we've got the two basic. These are the bottom parts. Now this one is the last section. The third corner of the triangle is communication. In understanding the composition of human relations in this universe, communication is more important than the other two corners of the triangle. It might be said that the triangle begins with communication, which brings into existence affinity and reality. Okay, so now, communication. This is pretty obvious, but one thing is that sometimes people think they're communicating, but they're not, as I will go over with you in a few minutes. So what are we talking about communication? Communication is a two-way flow. Okay, it's not just one way. It's a two-way. It's a giving communication and it's receiving communication. Giving and receiving. So if you have a colleague who is always talking to you, but never listens, it's not really communication. Or if you're the type of person who just listens to somebody, listens, but you never say anything, as was me years ago, I would just be quiet, I'd listen, but I'd never say anything. It's not communication. Communication is a two-way street. So let's put in some examples of communication. So how can you communicate? I'll put down a couple of examples and you can finish them off in the chat. Okay, so communication, verbal. You can have verbal communication. What other types of communication are there? Email. You can email somebody. You can text them. Kate, facial expressions, exactly. Just looking at somebody. Estefania, body language, excellent. Yeah, just waving, hello. It's communication. Or you move like this, it's communication. Verbal, email, handshake. I think we're allowed to shake hands now after the pandemic. You can actually shake hands with somebody and it is communication. So communication is verbal, on the phone, email, WhatsApp, text message, body language, handshaking, a look. All these things are communication. Marie, eye contact, yes. Physical or body language. Yes, Tony, thank you. So these are the three ingredients of understanding. So how do we work these together? And I'm about to show you exactly how they work together. Okay. So now, this is from page 94 here. I'm going to kind of paraphrase it a little bit, make it a bit easier to follow along with for the purpose of the webinar. So, how do you, using this triangle, start a relationship with somebody, improve a relationship with somebody, fix a relationship with somebody? First things first, how do you communicate to a man or a woman then? You establish reality. This is your first step. You establish reality by finding something with which you both agree. That's the very first thing. You establish reality by finding something with which you both agree. For example, myself and my wife have had plenty of arguments throughout the years. If, for example, as we did once, we argued about where my son was going to go to school, all right, she had one viewpoint and I had another. It was a disagreement, all right, and I think we weren't talking to each other for a day or two. And that's what happens when you have a disagreement. Communication goes down. So the way to fix that is just to find something that you both agree on. So the step would be a very, very simple one. Hi, darling. Would you like a cup of tea? Okay, it's a very basic thing. We both like tea. I like herbal tea. She likes normal tea. But we have a reality about tea. Now, we also have a reality that, for example, the son I'm talking about was very interested in the arts. So we were totally fine on bringing him to art classes. Okay, so we agreed on those points. So you find something with which you both agree. You don't go in and plow into the things that you disagree with, because it's not going to go anywhere. So for example, if we're disagreeing about the school, and every day I go to my wife and say, honey, darling, sit down, we're going to talk about the school, talk about the school, talk about the school. We don't agree on it. And it's not the entry point. The entry point is find something to agree with. And then, as I'm going to show you in a minute, you're going to be able to build that and build it up to a point where you can talk about what school you're going to send your son or your daughter to. Okay, so your next exercise. I want you to think about somebody that you would like to improve the relationship with. What do we have here? We have marriage, colleagues at work, friends, parents. Whatever example you want to pick. Think of somebody that you would like to improve a relationship with, and let's see if we can apply the first step. Find something that you both agree with. Find something that you both agree with. Tony from Instagram, I see there's loads of messages coming in. I'm going to handle all these in the questions at the end, because it's all going to come together, you'll see. Find something that you both agree with. Okay, you don't have to put them in the chat. If you want, you can. That's fine. Glass of wine with dinner. Wonderful. Okay, that's great. Very simple thing, but we can agree on that. So if you have a big explosive upset with somebody, whether it's your sister or your partner, your husband, your child, the entry point is, okay, find something that you both agree with. So for example, if you want to improve a relationship with your neighbor, and your neighbor likes fast cars, don't go out and pretend that you like fast cars just so that you can kind of somehow get in there. Because if you start talking about fast cars, your neighbor's going to sense it, that you're not really interested. You're just pretending. So what you do with the neighbor, you don't necessarily go in on fast cars because you don't agree. You don't like fast cars. They do. But you do both like to keep your front garden tidy. Okay. And so there's your entry point. You agree that the front garden should be kept tidy. So that's your entry point. Okay. Tony Murray, you agree on plants. Wonderful. Good. Okay. The next step. So that's your first step, is find something that you both can agree on. Okay. The next step is then you attempt to maintain as high an affinity level as possible by knowing there is something you can like about him or her. So, okay, you found something to agree with. Now, you've got to find something to like about the person. It could be the same thing, but there has to be something to like, and you have to maintain it. Okay? It's not enough. If you want to keep a relationship going, if you want to constantly improve, you're going to have to continuously maintain a degree of liking or love for that person. And it's really simple to do that. Just find something to like about the person. Maybe you hate the way they handle their kids. You hate where they live. You don't agree with the fact that they, I don't know, I don't know, drink or something like that. There's all sorts of things that you don't like about the person. But the trick here is to find one thing to like about the person. Maybe you like the fact that they've got cats. Maybe you like the fact that they have a hat. Maybe you like their sense of fashion. Find one thing to like and maintain it. You have to keep that affinity going. If you want to improve a relationship, you have to keep that loving or liking going. So if you have a big upset with somebody, you're not going to want them very close to you. So you're going to want to push them apart. If you want to improve that relationship, you're going to have to find something to like. And that's going to reel them back into you as a person. Find something to like about the person. It's not difficult. Well, it can be. If you don't see anything to like about the person, you're going to have to, if you want to improve the relationship, find something to like. Now, there's one thing I want to mention about this. You cannot talk adequately to a man or woman if you are in a sub-apathy. This is apathy. Apathy is a situation where you couldn't give a damn. You don't care about another person. I don't care about people. I couldn't be bothered. I just don't care. You cannot talk adequately to a man or woman if you are in sub-apathy. Now, sub-apathy means a state of disinterest below apathy. If you are in a sub-apathy condition. In fact, you would not talk to him at all. You would have to have a little higher affinity than that to discuss things with anybody. So, if you are sitting at home and all you care about is physical objects, you don't like people, you don't want anything to do with anybody, you don't trust anybody, you think everybody's out for the one thing, everybody's out for their own, and you're in a state of sub-apathy, you are not going to get that relationship going. You have to have some degree of liking for the person, find something to like, and then you're going to be able to talk to the person. Find something to like and maintain it. Keep it there. And it requires effort every day to, you get up to a point where it's not really effort, it's just natural. But you maintain it, keep it going, keep the affinity going. When you have these two things in place, then communication can occur. So, Vincent, that's very interesting. So what do we communicate about? What am I going to talk about? So let's do an example. Let's say you have a son and he's into rock music and you hate rock music and you've just had a big disagreement about the fact that he's playing his music too high. Okay? And you want to improve the relationship. So let's have a look at this, right? Your son. Find something that you both agree with. Okay, well, you don't agree with rock music, but he likes pizza and you like pizza. Good, there's something. Okay, step 2. Find something to like about the person. Well, that's going to be pretty easy. He's your son. I like that about him. He's my son. Now, which you have these two in place, now communication can take place. So this is your next exercise. What are you going to talk about? How are you going to start that conversation so that it can develop from there? Where are you going to start? What are you going to talk about? Pop your answers in the chat. What? You just had a big upset with your son about rock music. What are you going to start to talk about? Or what would be a good, safe place to go? Does anybody want to guess? Good. I've got one example. Anybody else? You've had a big disagreement with your son over rock music, but you want to improve the relationship. So what are you going to talk about? Thank you, Tony and Kate. Anybody else? Jen, you're getting close there. I gave a hint earlier on as a very good, safe place to start. As a very good, safe place, that's the one. That's the one. Yeah. Let me go through these comments, right? Kate, ask them a question about their day. Fantastic, right? It's a very light place to start. You both agree that it's Tuesday. He was in school, you were working, you could ask you about their day. Brilliant, that can be done. Tony from Instagram, movies. Great, providing that you know for a fact that your son is into movies. Okay, if you're only interested in movies, but they are not, then it's not going to be a good entry point. Or if you like science fiction movies and he likes romance movies, then it's going to be a bit difficult. But yeah, it could be done if you both have the same interest. Jen, okay. Aminat, anything other than rock music. That's fine, Aminat, but it's a bit hit and miss. It's a bit guesswork, right? It's best to be prepared before you go so that you're not wasting time in conversations that are going to go nowhere. Because remember that it's not really communication. If you're just talking about anything and everything, it's not really communication unless these two are involved. These two have to be involved in the communication. Okay, but anyway, it could be Aminat, it could be. Kate, maybe share a story about your parents hating your music. Good, actually, that's not a bad one at all. Yeah, my parents hated my music. Good, so that's a point of agreement. He hates the fact that you hate his music, and you also have a reality that your parents hated your music. So yeah, it's a good one, Kate. I like that one. And Jen, that was the one I was kind of hinting at, was pizza. Yes, Kate, if true, pizza, yes. So you know for a fact that he likes pizza, and you like pizza as well. You're not faking it. Don't fake it. Don't just pretend to be interested in something that you're not interested in. If you like pizza and he likes pizza, you could say to him simply, hey, do you want to get some pizza tonight? Boom, click. There's going to be an instant click. You know he likes pizza. And it's going to be an honest agreement. Right? Click. Then you can start developing it. And then after a while, you can start developing that into talking about music and maybe touching on the fact that is there any chance you could just lower the volume a little bit? Then he'll be more likely to agree with you. But to start off and pound him, it's often too high for the person. If true, yes. Catherine, a pet, dog, cat. Yeah, you could. But again, it's best not to be hit and miss. If you know for a fact that your son likes dogs or has a dog or has a cat, yes, absolutely. But if you're just making things up from your own imagination that it could be, it's just going to be a waste of time. So find out what you both agree on. Not what he agrees on, what you both agree on. Okay? Anaya, maybe dinner if they like what you're cooking. Wonderful. That's a good example. Marie, our dog who we both love, or other family members who we both love. Yeah, good. So you found some really good points of agreement. You could start talking about those. Great. And remember, when you're developing that and when you're keeping the conversation going, you keep the affinity going, you keep the liking, keep finding something to like. Don't fall into hate. Don't fall into apathy. If you feel yourself going, you know what, I couldn't be bothered, well, you'll have to just pick yourself up and find something to like. Otherwise, the relationship is going to go nowhere. If you can't find something to like, if you can't maintain that liking, maintain that affinity, relationship is just going to go back down. Okay? Marie, We can both have a good laugh. Our dog is the funniest. Very good. That's a good point of reality. Yes, and I think, Tony, you said, how do we talk about the rock music? We build up to it, all right? You get in on the pizza because there's your reality point. And then your affinity is going to come up. You're going to be more in communication. And then this thing is going to build. You keep the communication going. It's going to build, build, and build. And eventually, the sun is going to get your reality when you start talking about music, that it hurts your ears. And he didn't know that before. And now he goes, oh, I see. I get it now. I understand. I understand. The end result of this process is understanding. Okay? To understand. Eventually, your son understands why it is that you don't like rock music. But if you go in and you pound on that straight away, it's going to be just, it's going to get rejected. Okay? Oh, so bring up your common reality. Exactly. So you bring up your common reality, and the more communication you do at that level of reality, it's going to build. You can introduce new things, build it up, gradually, gradually, gradually. So even if you're talking to a colleague, I think somebody mentioned about too honest. I don't know who else said too honest and opinionated, right? So there's nothing wrong with expressing an opinion. That's completely fine. It's just if somebody else, let's say everybody in the room loves dogs, okay? And you go in and you say, I hate dogs. Dogs are the worst creature in the whole world. It's violating this first rule. You could go in, you don't have to say, I love dogs, but you could go in and say, like for example, in Ireland, I don't know what the weather is like in your parts of Canada or the world, wherever you're from, but in Ireland it rains quite a lot, and the weather is a really hot topic of conversation. Hot was probably not the best word to use, but cold, breezy, okay? But it's a very popular topic. So if you don't like dogs, but everybody else in the room like dogs, you could simply talk about the weather, and thereby you're going to build the affinity, build the communication, and then you can gradually get through to them. You know what? I'm not particularly fond of dogs, and that it wouldn't ruin the relationship. Whereas if you go in too hard, well, this is my reality, and then that's it. I don't care what you think. That's my reality. It's going to be too much. Whereas you're better off just starting off on a point and then you just build it from there. And that doesn't have to take long either. Okay, folks. So I hope that tool helped you to understand a little bit about relationships. You can use that to develop a relationship with somebody. And the more you use this, the more communication. It has to be used as one unit, you see. So when you are communicating, communicate with reality. When you are communicating, communicate with affinity. Otherwise, it's not communication. If I start pounding you at this webinar, everybody should wear yellow socks going to bed every night, and that's bam, ba, bam, ba, bam. It's not communication because it's just unreal. What's he talking about? If I try to persuade you that this blue pen is actually a bicycle, keep communicating. It is not communication because there is no reality, there's no agreement, and there's no affinity. And you can also, this is why this one is the most important one. With communication, you can build up somebody's reality, and you can build up the reality that you have. They can understand you more, and you can have more agreement, and you can like the person a lot more. Okay, folks, I hope that helped you in relation to giving you some basics that you can use on an immediate basis. If you just start applying that straight away, you are going to get results. Keep it simple, keep it light, keep it friendly, and you'll be on your way. Now, what I touched on tonight is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of giving you data. There's a lot more data around this that you should learn. So what I'm going to do, before I get into questions, I'm going to show you what I would recommend for everybody as a next step. But before I do that, I want you to have a look at one thing, okay? And that is this. Some of the things that you mentioned at the beginning were issues with marriage, relationships, awkward around people, too honest and opinionated, maybe issues with friends and parents. If you think about how those problems affect you personally, for example, if you don't have a good relationship, and let me ask you this, you can actually answer in the chat if you don't mind. When you have an upset with somebody, or when you are not on good terms with somebody, how does it affect you? Can you put your answer in the chat? When you're not on good terms with somebody, how does it affect you? Would you put your answer in the chat? When you're not on good terms with somebody, when you're not at the level of relationship that you'd like to be, how does it affect you? Pop your answer into the chat, please. What impact does it have on you and your life, if any? Okay, keep typing them in there, please. That'd be great. I'm tired, sick, and have very short fuse. Thank you, Kate. Marie, makes me feel uncomfortable. Kate, just don't feel balanced. Anushka, people lose interest in me. And stress, from Tony. Thank you. Right. So if all those things are happening at the moment, like losing the head, getting tired and sick, feeling uncomfortable, not feeling balanced, people losing interest in you, and stress. If that's happening right now, what's it going to be like in 5 years' time if you don't change it? If you don't do something about it? Right? You don't have to answer that question because it's kind of obvious. If you don't do something about it, it gets worse. It doesn't get better by itself. It doesn't miraculously fix itself. Marie, it will fester, yeah, and when it festers, it causes other issues. So if it's not handled, it will tend to get worse and affect other areas of your life. So the thing to do is to learn about how to handle these things. And it's very straightforward. So if you got something out of this webinar tonight, what I would like you to do is take it the next step further and get yourself a little bit more education. Because what I gave you tonight is just a snippet of the data that I have here. So what I want to do is give you what the full answer is. This is the partial answer, right? It's just a little glimpse of what you need to do to really start improving your life. What you need to get is the full answer, and I want to show you the reading materials that I'd recommend for you in order to get that. First thing is this book, A New Slant on Life. Now this book is absolutely simple to read. It's really easy to read. It's a very good read. And what I went over tonight is explained in the book. Explains about the affinity reality communication triangle and how to use it. It also explains to you the 12 personality traits that make someone your friend or enemy, the real cause of conflicts, 2 rules for happy living. It's got data about decisions, how to make decisions in life, how to improve your work, how to improve your marriage, how to help your children, and how to deal with people and spot somebody who is intent on bringing you down in life. It's been translated into 50 languages. This is the book I would recommend for all of you in order to get more education on the subject. Now, if you get this book before 9:15 tonight, or until the end of our questions and answers time, I'm going to also send you this book for free. This is the communication booklet. Now this booklet contains, I think it's 8 practical exercises that you can use on an immediate basis to practice your communication skill. there is a free online course that goes with this, and you can literally use it with a friend or a family member to improve your communication. So, for example, somebody mentioned being awkward around people. That gets handled on the exercises within this book, and it's all done with little pictures. They're very easy to do, all these different practical exercises. And again, there's a free online course that goes with that. Also, you know, how to not be nervous around people, how to be just yourself and relaxed. So that is the book. So if you get this book before 9:15 tonight, that book is going to be sent out to you for free. And it's sent out with free shipping. So those are the first steps. And the reason I recommend books is because you're much better off getting an education first so that you can decide for yourself. Okay, it's all very well attending a webinar, but I would like you to just sit down in front of the fire or in front of the stove or in bed and just read the book for yourself and make up your own mind. And then you get all the data about what I went over. Okay, so the link is going up there right now. As I said, if you get it before 9:15, you get the communication booklet for free, and it's free shipping. Now, that's fine, Anushka, and the link is there for you to get that. Now, what I want to do, before we end off for the evening, I want to open it up for anybody who has any questions on any of the subjects or topics that I went over tonight. I will go back because I saw there was a couple of questions that came in there earlier on. But if you have any questions, could you please pop them into the chat right now, and I will do my best to get them all covered within the next few minutes, because I don't want to keep you here late. You've kindly given me your time tonight, and I really appreciate it. So please just pop your questions into the chat, and I will do that. Okay, so maybe we can remove Jake there from the thing. Jake, I'm sorry, that's a bit rude. Maybe we could just remove Jake from the chat, please, Dita, if you don't mind. Thank you. That's very rude, actually. Okay, so yes, could you, any questions that you have on it? Yes, Estefania, you don't want to know. Believe me, you don't want to know. It's one of these things that you know, any normal human being would not show on a chat or in a group meeting, you know. I don't even want to mention it. Okay, so anyway, I want to go back to questions that we had earlier on. Okay. Let's see. There's a couple of questions. Tony, if you're still on Instagram, if someone is ignoring someone a form of communication, yeah, ignoring somebody is not really communication. Yeah, I mean, if you're, you know, if somebody walks up to you and you deliberately turn your head that way, it is telling the person something. But by ignoring somebody, you're effectively not communicating. So yeah, it's not really communication. It's the opposite. And it creates the opposite result. As you can see from this diagram, communication improves relationships with people, whereas non-communication will do the opposite. Who makes the first move to start talking again? You do. And you use this tool in order to get the communication going. So you do it. Don't wait for somebody else to improve the relationship. You can become in control of your own life by starting to use this tool. What if you're the only one who is making all the effort? And I think if you apply this, Tony, here, these basics, you would start to get in at the point of reality for the person. And that is a really, really good place to start. Okay, let me just see, is there any other questions that I missed out on? Yeah, I think I went over that about rock music and that disagreement about the rock music. You start off with the level of pizza and you can eventually build it up to rock music. Okay. Let's see. Kate, how do you keep a person's focus on the conversation? That's a really good question. If you have a situation where you feel that somebody is not listening to you or they're off or they're daydreaming, it's hard for you to get the communication across. The exercises in this book are things that you can apply on an immediate basis to basically help improve that. Because you could say to yourself, well, it's the other person's fault because they don't listen to me. You could take another look at that and you could say, okay, well, what am I doing incorrectly that could be contributing to the person losing interest. So a couple of factors to do with that are, if you yourself are in any way below these points, you're angry or you're getting stressed or you're trying to push it home or you're trying to be overly direct with a person, if you're doing all that, it's going to be difficult. Okay? Whereas if you're maintaining interest in the person and you're genuinely there and you're genuinely going over stuff that you both agree with, okay, you will likely maintain that interest. It's just what I found in conversations also, it starts off with people are talking about a certain subject and they have a common reality. Then one person goes to a different level of reality, okay, or breaks the person's reality, and at that point the person loses interest and starts dreaming away. So if you use this tool of improving the reality, improving the affinity and the communication, it's at that point that you will then be able to maintain the person's interest. Of course, it is definitely, the other person is a part of the conversation as well. That's true. But what I would recommend in this case for yourself is do some of these practical exercises, and it's going to make it easier for you to keep their attention. All right. So there's some practical drills there of how to get your communication across, listening to the person, being there for the person. Okay. So it all starts with you. I found that when people say, well, it's their fault, they're not a good communicator, they won't communicate to me, it doesn't really help. What can you do to improve that communication? And you can do it. Even if apparently the person's not interested, you can build it up and maintain that interest. Okay, so I hope that helped you. Is there a point you just have to stop communicating because the person is taking advantage of me? Okay, that's Tony. Thank you very much for that, Tony. The fact is, you have a right to communicate or not to communicate with somebody. All right? You have a right to be able to do that. You have a right to communicate or not to communicate. Too often, people just cut the communication. They have a problem with somebody, or they feel that they're being mistreated, and they cut the communication. What I recommend is when you're faced with a situation like that, for example, a person taking advantage of you, is to first try and handle it. All right? And it's to use this triangle to try and handle a situation. You can simply approach the person and say, listen, do you mind if we sit down for a cup of tea? There's something I need to get off my chest. When we are in a restaurant and you expect me to always pay the bill, it's hard for me because I don't always have the money. Now, 9 times out of 10, I found that people go, oh, yeah, okay, that's fine. And it actually gets handled. Okay? But even with that person, you still have to maintain some affinity for the person. Because if you've decided you hate the person, there's nothing that you like about the person, you don't want to talk to them, it's not going to go anywhere. So the very first step is find something that you both agree with, maintain the liking, and then you can get the communication going. And as you do that, you'll be able to build up. In Ireland, our technique for that is a cup of tea. Okay? We all agree that a cup of tea is the place to be and how to start off a conversation. Let's have a cup of tea. Find something to like about the person. Maybe they live in the same town. Maybe they have the same hairstyle, the same choice of clothes, the same brand. And then the communication is the other aspect of it. You can communicate as well. Okay? When those pieces come together. And I find that if you've got somebody taking advantage of you, yes, you have the right to cut the communication, but I always recommend that you try and handle it as best you can and as much as you possibly can first, because it's possible to handle a lot of these situations, you know. Kate, okay, so complete honesty, I know I'm not perfect, but it's extremely frustrating trying to communicate with an individual diagnosed with NPD. Okay, narcissistic personality disorder. Okay, now, again, the same thing applies, Kate, is that you don't have to fake being interested in something that you're not interested in. You just start off with those points. And this is probably the hardest part. If you've got somebody in your life who is difficult to deal with, this is probably the hardest part, is to keep finding something to like about the person. That's the key ingredient. If you can find one thing to like, and just, okay, I still like the fact that they're my neighbor or they're a family member. I keep going. I keep going. Look, there's nothing to stop you from going up to the person and saying, look, let's have a cup of tea. I like this, blah, 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 and let's communicate. And then eventually you get around to it and you say, look, when you tell me I'm an idiot 5 times a day, it hurts me. So would you mind, please, don't do that again. Or it could be anything. When you're late every night and the dinner's burnt, it really frustrates me because I've done all this work. Would you mind not doing that? Now, if after 6 months of doing this is still the same, eventually you have the right to go, right, that's enough. That's it now. That's it. Change it, please, if you don't mind. With sugar on top, please. Now, I don't think you get to that point, because if you keep the liking in there, and you keep that agreement, and you keep the communication going, you'll get where you want to go. Okay? And by the way, everything that I went over with you tonight is explained in the book. Okay? There's a full explanation in the book, and all those different areas, whether it's marriage or how to spot somebody who is suppressive, tries to put you down directly or indirectly, how to basically identify that type of person, and how that relates to a marriage, workplace, children. It's all in there. So all the answers are in the book. Okay, and I'd recommend that you get those. So Kate, I hope that helped you with that question. Now, who have I got left? I've got S, I've got Anushka, Aminat, Kate, Estefania, and Eric as well. Anybody else have any questions? As I mentioned, the deal on this book is on until 9:15 tonight. I'd recommend you get a copy of it. It's a really, really easy book to read. And then we're also available if you have any questions on the book, or if you want to follow it up, or you want to do a course, or if you want to do like a communication course here, you can let us know and we can help you out with that. Okie dokie. So I don't see any more questions coming in. So on that note, I will say good night to you all. I want to say good night and thank you to everybody on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram for sticking with me throughout the webinar. And for everybody who's left on Zoom, thank you, S, Sue, Anushka, Kate, Estefania, and Eric. Thank you so much for being here and for communicating. And there is one more question coming in. It's on its way. 1 second. I don't want to end off. There's a question coming in here on the last train for the evening. And just wait for it to come in here, and then I'll say my final goodbyes. And if anybody wants to sneak in a sneaky question there, please do feel free to do so. Tony, Vincent. Vincent is my name. Yes. I've been delivering these webinars and seminars and all this. I'm a trained counselor since 1992-93. And yeah, you can definitely connect up. Send us an email. You know, we have our email address. If any questions are going to connect up, certainly you can send us an email and we'll actually connect up with you on anything that you want to cover, Tony. That'll be perfect. Okay, folks, you're welcome, Estefania. Thank you so much, everybody. Have an absolutely beautiful rest of your evening. And I hope to see you in the future. Okay, maybe at the webinars or even in person. Okay, everybody, bye for now.